I want voters to stop and ask themselves, would we trust somebody who is stirring up these violent feelings, who is pointing fingers, scapegoating, making a joke about a violent attack on Paul Pelosi? Why would you trust that person to have power over you, your family, your business, your community? This is a real threat to the heart of our democracy.
Hillary Clinton's timely warning about the deceitful and hateful rhetoric coming out of today's right-wing extremist agenda and its candidates on the ballot in this midterm election. Our next guest has been fighting on the front lines this year against their unceasing attacks and dangerous language. Here was Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow's viral takedown last spring on the lies told by her Republican colleagues that she was, quote, grooming children.
I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme, because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of, quote, parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense.
It is a pleasure now to introduce Michigan State Democratic Senator Mallory McMorrow. Thank you so much for being here. We played those comments then. In some ways, they're more salient now that the right seems totally captive to conspiracies. I know you've seen the things we've been talking about up close, not just the lies, but the political violence. And we wanted to hear your thoughts about this moment, your concerns.
It is a really scary moment, and we saw this play out here in Michigan with an armed protest on our state capitol in April of 2020, where there were heavily armed gunmen up in our gallery. And then later on the very same day that we learned about the plot to kidnap and potentially kill Governor Gretchen Whitmer, we were sitting on the Senate floor and we were watching that live stream, and our Senate Majority Leader stood up and gave a speech decrying that violence, and then immediately turned around and went to a protest on the Capitol steps with the same group of militias who were responsible for orchestrating that plot, and told them to keep going. So we've seen this for some time, but this is why it's so important to recognize that the GOP right now is doing this as a political strategy. They are aligning themselves with these groups because it's winning. And we have 6 days left to fight back, not with violence, but at the ballot box.
How are you feeling about that? Like, what do you think is on? We had Officer Michael Fanone, Metropolitan Police Officer, who was on the front lines of the January 6th insurrection. And he had a really bleak assessment of people's interest in January 6th and the tie to attacks like the one you're talking about. Do you think it's on people's mind, or do you think it feels separate from their lives?
I think it very much is on people's minds here in Michigan, because we've seen it right at home. When we saw January 6th play out, it didn't surprise anybody in Michigan, because Michigan was the trial run. And we saw that there were no consequences at the time for people who took part in the violent protest on our state capitol. The difference being in Michigan, they didn't break in with weapons. They were invited in by the Republican Majority Leader. So voters, when we're talking to them on the doors right now, are keenly aware of this issue, and they know that the best way that we can fight back is by voting these people out of office, so that they know that aligning yourself with violent criminals, with people who want to disrupt our system of government and cause harm, is not a winning strategy, and you will be voted out of office.
Yeah, I mean, something that's always struck me is that Republicans are running on ideas that they think give them an advantage, but nothing to address them. They have no plans to deal with inflation or the economy or crime. They simply want to use them as political cudgels against the other party. Does that, I mean, do you feel when you're talking to voters in such an important state, is that connection made, or are people just sort of impatient and exasperated? What are you hearing from voters?
That's exactly right. And it's our job as candidates, especially down ballot, to be having that conversation directly with voters. The Republicans are excellent at pointing out issues, at pointing out inflation, at pointing out that people are struggling. But a perfect example in Michigan, Republicans put up a bill to have a gas tax holiday here in Michigan that we voted against. And now they're using it in ads against Democrats. But it's a gas tax holiday that wouldn't even have gone into effect until 2023. So they're just doing it to score political points. And we are the ones on the doors talking to voters every single day, pointing out that they don't have any solutions. They want you to believe that somehow it's a kid who wants to play soccer at school, or it's a member of the LGBTQ community, or it's CRT, or whatever the attack is of the week, that somehow if that went away, it would solve all your problems. And it's absolute nonsense. And voters are a lot smarter than that.
You know, it is straight out of the American President, right? Bob Rumson running on, what to be afraid of and who to blame. You are one of the most effective and intuitive messengers in the country, not just in the Democratic Party. Do people ask for your advice, and what do you tell them?
They do. And I have been really thrilled to be able to work with our state Senate candidates all around Michigan, because we have an opportunity to flip the state Senate from GOP to Democratic control for the first time since 1984. And it really is about making that direct connection. It's about talking about the economy. It's about talking about democratic solutions and pointing out directly to voters that we do have solutions, but you probably can't hear them because the Republicans right now are out there screaming about exactly that, who you should be afraid of this week. And once we reveal that and reveal how hollow it is, voters are pissed and they're ready to kick them out of office.